Hey guys, tonight we travel back to the windswept steppes of Central Asia. Imagine the cool whisper of silk flapping on a merchant's caravan, the crunch of hooves over dry gravel, and the low, dangerous murmur of tension building between empires. You're standing beneath the endless sky, just a horse in the horizon, until treachery calls you to war. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are Genghis Khan, leader of the Mongols, born Temujin of the Blue Wolf. The year is 1218. Your empire stretches like a leather map unrolling across the grasslands of Asia, but now your eyes turn west, toward the Khwarizmian Empire. At first you don't want war, truly you don't. There are cities to govern, sons to advise, and horses to brush. Plus you just finished conquering the Western Shia and Jin dynasties. That was exhausting, so instead you do something rare. You send a diplomatic caravan. It's peaceful, it's respectful, and it carries some pretty great stuff to trade. The Shah of Khwarizm, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, receives your envoy in the city of Otrar. And then? He kills them. Okay, not personally, but he allows his governor Inalchuk to accuse your envoys of spying. Their goods are seized, some are tortured, all are murdered. One poor soul gets molten silver poured into his ears. It's not exactly the warm reception you'd expect when you're offering silk and civility. You try again. You send a second delegation, just 3 men this time, 1 Mongol, 2 Muslims. A polite request. Hey, we're assuming this was a rogue governor. Could you punish him? We're being super chill about this. The Shah executes the lead envoy and shaves the beards of the others before sending them back. Shaving a Mongol. The envoy's beard is like kicking a dragon in the face and saying, do something. Spoiler alert, you do something. This is the moment the sky darkens over Khwarizm. You gather your court, your sons, your best generals, Subotai, Jebe, the wise Jelme, each one hard as boiled goat meat and twice as unyielding. You speak plainly. They murdered our men. They dishonored our seal. This will not stand. There's silence, and then the murmurs rise like the wind before a storm. Revenge, blood, justice, or as you like to say, a rebalancing of the universe. And here's a little-known tidbit. Mongol messengers wore a special token called a paisa, like a VIP, badge of invincibility. Killing someone with one was breaking sacred diplomatic norms, and basically asking to be steamrolled. You retreat into planning, as meticulous as a scribe. This won't be a raid. No, this will be an extinction event. While your commanders prepare horses and maps, you issue an empire-wide decree. Every warrior between 15 and 70 is summoned, not just for battle, for vengeance. The Khwarizmians had insulted your soul. Somewhere a goat sneezes dramatically. The Khwarizmian Empire is no weakling. It's vast, stretching from the Caspian Sea to Persia and into the Indian subcontinent. Its cities, Bukhara, Samarkand, Urgench, are glittering centers of wealth and learning. The Shah commands over 500,000 men. But there's a flaw. He doesn't see you coming, literally, because you don't take the main roads. That would be boring. Instead, you're going to sneak in through the desert. The Kizilkum, to be precise, a scorching, desolate place filled with sand so fine it could exfoliate your ancestors. No sane person marches an army through it. You're not a sane person. As your men prepare, you make a quiet note. This war will be a lesson written not in ink, but in movement. Fast, silent, unpredictable. Like a shadow passing before the sun, but for now you wait. You stroke the mane of your horse and whisper a promise. Soon the world will remember what happens when Genghis Khan is disrespected. Oh, and quick fun fact, according to some accounts, you once said that the greatest joy is to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women. Bit dramatic. You may have just needed a nap. The armies begin to stir. The earth hums under their hooves. Across the plains, the air changes. Justice is coming, and you're bringing the entire steppe with you. You move like a whisper across the steppe. The Khwarizmian Shah, bless his overconfident little crown, believes he has time. He thinks you're far off, busy herding goats or inventing new siege engines or whatever it is Mongols do when they're not annihilating civilizations. But he underestimates one thing, your mastery of deception and movement. You split your army. It's not chaos, it's art. One force, led by your son Yochi, approaches from the north, making noise like a drunken parade of war drums and wild horses. The Shah hears this and thinks, aha, that must be the main army. He's wrong, that's the distraction. You, meanwhile, lead the real strike force south through the Kyzylkum desert. It's not scenic, it's brutal. Sand whips your face like nature's own exfoliant. Water is so scarce, your men carry it in tightly sealed skins, every drop guarded like treasure. Your scouts map oases days ahead. You move by night, rest by day, horses drop, men stumble, but none complain. You are not here to be comfortable, you are here to destroy. Then, like thunder out of a clear sky, you hit Otrar. You don't just attack, you suffocate. You surround the city on all sides, your archers darkening the air with arrows. Inalchuk, the governor who started this mess by killing your first envoys, is holed up inside. For 5 months, your men tighten the noose. Tunnels are dug beneath. Walls, fires are set, walls crumble. Here's where your poetic side shines. When Inalchuk is finally captured, you don't execute him quickly. No, you have molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. It's theatrical, messy. Definitely not FDA approved. But hey, diplomacy matters. Then you move on to Bukhara. Now, Bukhara isn't some dusty outpost. It's a glittering city, a center of Islamic learning, art and architecture. Minarets stretch toward the heavens like fingers pointing to God. And here you are, riding through its gates as if you were invited. The citizens panic. The city falls with shocking speed. The Shah's army had fled days before. You enter the Friday mosque, dismount from your horse and stand before the faithful. You give a short speech, something like, I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me. Here's the historical tidbit. Contemporary chroniclers, many, of them Persian, record that you actually spared many civilians in Bukhara. You reserved your fury for those who resisted. Sure, you torched the citadel and looted the treasures, but in Mongol terms that's practically gentle. As you leave Bukhara, you pause to admire the city's famed carpetwork. It's fine. Not enough goats, in your opinion. Next, Samarkand. Samarkand, jewel of the Silk Road, another city of culture, trade and scholarship. The Shah finally wakes up and sends reinforcements. Some 100,000 soldiers dig in to defend the city. You bring siege engines, battering rams, and your own special sauce, psychological warfare. First, you have your men construct fake soldiers, wooden mannequins on extra horses, to make your forces appear even larger. Then you send messages into the city, promising death but also no options. Surrender now and we might not turn your libraries into kindling. After 5 days of fighting, the city falls. Not from brute force, though there's plenty of that, but from the sheer weight of inevitability. Your troops pour in like floodwater. It's a moment of awe, dread and dust. The gates swing open. The defenders, terrified and disoriented, scatter. Here's a quirky curiosity. Mongol soldiers were required to bring back a certain number of ears from fallen enemies to prove their kill count. It's a little grisly, sure, but it's also efficient. Like medieval HR metrics, after Samarkand you start getting creative. You send your generals in multiple directions. Jabi and Subutai head into the mountains, cutting off reinforcements. Others sweep west, spreading rumors of your approach. You want the Shah to feel the earth trembling beneath his gilded boots. And oh, he does. By now, he's basically a fugitive in his own empire. He flees from city to city, Samarkand to Nishapur to Balkh, never staying long enough to command. His people lose faith. His soldiers desert. His advisors whisper things like, maybe we should have just given the Mongols a fruit basket and called it a day. The Shah retreats to an island in the Caspian Sea. You don't even bother chasing him there. Instead, you send a special unit, led by your sons, to track him, not to fight, just to follow. To remind him every single day that he is prey. It's the psychological warfare equivalent of leaving a horse head in someone's bed, except the horse is real, and the bed is on fire, and the horse is also whispering, "Genghis is coming." Eventually, the Shah dies, not in battle, not with honor. He dies in hiding, shivering on that island, broken by your shadow. You don't even gloat. There's no victory dance, no tweet storm. You just turn your horse and ride on the empire he ruled. Its rubble, the Khwarizmian dynasty, extinct. You didn't just win a war, you rewrote the landscape, and all because a man killed your envoys. Next time, maybe just return the package unopened. Your saddle creaks softly beneath you as the sun rises, casting long shadows across a kingdom now decimated. But your work isn't finished. The Khwarizmian Emperor might be dead, his empire shattered, but his loyalists still cling to life like stubborn stains on a silk robe. Your eyes turn west. Merv. They call it the mother of cities, and once you see it from afar, you understand why. Its domes gleam in the morning light. Palms sway gently in the breeze. It smells like spice markets and ambition. It's also crawling with potential threats. You approach calmly, not with horns blaring, but like a soft breeze that might turn into a storm, and it does. The city opens its gates. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's pragmatism, doesn't matter. You enter with a deceptive grace, like a guest invited to dinner. The people think they've surrendered. You smile, nod, set up. Camp, then you summon the elders. One by one they enter your tent. One by one they do not leave. There's an infamous moment here, historically cited and debated, where you order your soldiers to count every citizen, organize them, and, well, let's say Merv suddenly has a lot more elbow room. Eyewitnesses claim you executed hundreds of thousands. Is it exaggerated? Probably. But the message is clear: resist and you're erased. Fun fact, Merv had one of the oldest libraries in Central Asia. According to one story, it was so massive and densely packed that it took weeks to finish burning. The smell of smoldering parchment lingered long after your horses had moved on. You don't do this because you love destruction. You do it to prevent future wars. Fear, after all, is the most efficient peace treaty. Next up, Nishapur. Nishapur. It should have learned from its neighbors, but pride makes people foolish. One of your generals, Tolui, your youngest son, leads the charge. His favorite son, however, is killed during the battle. And Tolui? He's not exactly known for emotional restraint. In a fit of grief and fury, he orders every living thing inside the city to be slaughtered. Men, women, children, even cats and dogs. Legend says the blood ran ankle-deep in the streets. Here's where things get weird. Mongol engineers supposedly diverted a nearby river to wash away the blood and debris. Imagine weaponizing hydrology just to make a point. You're not conquering with swords anymore. You're conquering with infrastructure. At night you sit by the fire sharpening your blade, not because it needs it, but because ritual matters. A few of your generals argue about which city to crush next. You listen, amused. You already know the answer. Herat. The city holds out longer than expected. Its walls are thick, its leaders stubborn, but you're not in a rush. You deploy your engineers, masters of siege, experts in logistics. One of them once built a bridge entirely out of inflated animal skins. You admire that sort of creativity. Siege towers roll forward. Arrows rain down. Herat groans like a dying beast. Eventually, its gates crack. The defenders beg for mercy. You offer it, briefly. Then you take it back. Not to be cruel, but to be consistent. You can't let word get out that you're going soft. Compassion gets you assassinated. Fear gets you remembered. By now, the Persian chroniclers are writing entire chapters dedicated to your methods. Some hate you, some fear you, some are oddly impressed. One even writes that your empire is a storm of steel with a heart of ice. You find that poetic. You also find it useful. Your reputation travels faster than your horse. Cities begin surrendering before you arrive. When your banners appear on the horizon, walls drop and gates swing open like greeting arms. You don't even have to fight, and when you do, it's choreographed chaos. Here's a bit of trivia. Mongol warriors carried multiple bows, one for long range, one for close, and they practiced shooting while riding at full gallop. It's like playing darts while driving a go-kart on gravel. Blindfolded, with bees, you and your generals communicate with smoke signals and flags. Entire armies move like a single organism. It's not just war, it's dance. And in this dance, you're always leading. Meanwhile, the surviving remnants of the Khwarizmian resistance scatter. Some flee into the mountains, others disguise themselves as merchants. One even joins a monastery. None of them sleep well. You hear of a rogue general trying to regroup in the west. You dispatch Jebi to deal with it. Jebi doesn't knock. He walks through the front door carrying fire and persuasion. At this point, you're not just a military commander. You're a psychological storm. People whisper that you can see through walls, command wolves, and turn sand into spears. It's nonsense, but useful nonsense. Even your own soldiers buy into the myth. They believe they're invincible because you are. Morale has never been higher. As you ride through the ruins of yet another vanquished stronghold, you notice something strange. Children, playing among the rubble, they use broken swords as toys. One of them tries to shoot an arrow from a splintered bow. You watch for a moment, then you move on, because the war isn't over, not yet. There are still pieces left on the board, and you intend to sweep everyone of them into history's dustpan, but for now you rest, not because you're tired, but because the next strike will require everything, and you never strike twice with the same rhythm. Your boots crunch over frost-covered ground as the wind howls across the Caspian plains. You've followed the scent of rebellion westward, always westward, like a predator chasing the last heartbeat of a dying empire. The Khwarizmian Empire. Maybe cracked and bleeding, but it still twitches. And that twitch's name is Jalal al-Din. He's the son of the emperor you crushed like a date pit. And unlike his father, he's got guts. Too bad guts don't beat you. Word reaches you that Jalal is rallying survivors in the mountains of what is now Afghanistan. You don't send scouts. You go yourself. Because this is personal now. You ride with a small contingent of your most trusted warriors, men who once raced antelopes on horseback just for fun. You scale passes that make other armies weep. You traverse ice-crusted rivers, like it's a casual morning jog. One of your generals breaks his wrist when his horse slips on a rocky ledge. You don't stop. Eventually, your prey shows himself. Jalal has gathered a sizable force near the city of Parwan. It's not huge, but it's organized, and it has heart. That's dangerous. You meet him in battle, and here's the twist. You lose. Yes, you not a massive defeat, but enough to sting. Jalal uses the terrain brilliantly, bottlenecking your cavalry, forcing them into tight quarters where their maneuverability means little. You hate terrain. Terrain is betrayal wearing grass, and gravel, you retreat, you don't sulk, you don't rage. You just simmer, like a storm crouching behind the horizon. Historical footnote. This battle, Parwan, is one of the rare instances where you're outplayed tactically. Jalal earns his place in legend. But here's the thing. Legends die too, and you're about to prove it. Jalal, feeling victorious, flees south toward the Indus River. He believes you've given up. He believes you've gone back east to lick your wounds. He clearly doesn't know you. You chase him like shadow. Your army regroups fast, too fast for Jalal's comfort. By the time he reaches the river, you're right behind him. He tries to cross, scrambling over rafts and half-sunken ferries. You watch him from the banks. His men are panicked, drenched, slipping in mud. Their arrows are soaked, their morale worse. You unleash. Arrows blacken the sky like a swarm of vengeful crows. Screams echo across the water. Jalal narrowly escapes, dives into the river like a cornered fox and swims across with nothing but his sword and rage. You admire the stubbornness, but also the desperation. Fun fact, Jalal al-Din reportedly lost a gold crown in the river while fleeing. Somewhere beneath the Indus, a fish might still be ruling a tiny underwater empire to this day. You don't follow him into India. Not yet. You let him run. Why? Because the empire he tried to save is gone. His escape is your advertisement. Let the survivors whisper, even when you win, you lose to Genghis. You turn your gaze northward again. It's time to clean house. You dispatch your generals like chess pieces. Subutai, the quiet killer. Jebe, the lightning bolt. They sweep through the remaining strongholds with brutal efficiency. You return to the ruined heart of the Khwarizmian Empire. There's nothing left to conquer, just ghosts, ashes, and rumors. One city refuses to surrender. A minor fortress, tucked away behind rocky outcrops, forgotten by time. You give it the full treatment. Catapults, fire, and a dramatic reading of "I told you so." There's a moment after the last stone wall falls, when the fires die down, and the screams are replaced by silence that you feel it. Stillness, not peace, never peace, but the moment between two thunderclaps. It's oddly beautiful. You sit under the stars that night, wrapped in a cloak lined with sable fur, sipping fermented mare's milk from a horn carved with wolves. One of your soldiers brings news. A distant city has pledged allegiance without a fight. Another offers tribute. You smile. The war started with arrogance and betrayal. It ends with submission and silence. You've reshaped the map, redrawn it in hoofprints and blood, but also in roads, trade routes, and new alliances. You're not just a destroyer. You're an architect, a dark, majestic one. Quick sidebar. Did you know Mongol postal routes were so efficient? They inspired later European systems. Your empire practically invented overnight shipping. Amazon wishes, but you're not interested in legacy. Not yet. You're still hungry, still watching the borders, still remembering the way Jalal's sword glinted in the sun as he fled into the Indus. Your generals want to celebrate. You let them. There's music, horse racing, even a wrestling match, where a warrior dislocates his shoulder and laughs about it. You don't join them. You walk the empty streets of a city you once crushed, now silent under the moon. You hear footsteps behind you. A child? A beggar? You don't turn, because you already know you're not feared because you always win. You're feared because you always return. The wind shifts again, carrying a dry, bitter taste across the Khorasan plains. You stand on a rise overlooking Nishapur, what was once a city of poets, philosophers, and merchants wrapped in silk and prayer. Now it's dust and whispers. You're not hunting armies anymore. You're hunting legacies. The Khwarizmian Empire as a political entity is extinguished. Jalal al-Din is a fugitive, carving a desperate path through India. But loose ends still flutter in the wind, and you hate loose. Ends your generals, loyal, terrifying, efficient, fan out across the remains of Persia. Subutai takes the northern passes, carving a trail through snow and defiance. Yebe slices eastward, chasing rumors of hidden governors hoarding coins and illusions of resistance. You take the heart. You march into the soul of the old empire. Cities like Merv, Herat, and Balkh each try a different tactic. Some plead, some bribe, some foolishly resist. None of them succeed. Let's pause on Merv, once one of the largest cities on earth. Home to scholars, libraries, and art that even you, lover of conquest, not calligraphy, find impressive. When you approach its gates, they open. The governor begs for mercy. You grant it. And then, days later, his garrison murders a group of your soldiers during negotiations. You don't take that lightly. The city is leveled, not because you enjoy destruction, though, honestly, sometimes it's a nice stress reliever, but because you are sending a message carved into the bones of history. Treachery will be answered with finality. Quick detour. There's a Mongol saying that fits your style. It is easy to conquer the world on horseback. It is hard to dismount and govern. You're still on the horse. Governing is for later. Meanwhile, your intelligence network grows sharper by the day. You intercept messages, forge new alliances, and let word of your swift justice spread like wildfire. Here's a weird one. In Nishapur, legend says that when your son-in-law is killed during the siege, you order such vengeance that the city is reduced not just to rubble, but to dust. So thorough is your retribution that even the rats pack up and move. Is it exaggerated? Probably. Is it useful for terrifying future enemies? Absolutely. At this point, even the cities that haven't seen your banners know you're coming. Some surrender before you even set up camp. Others attempt sabotage, sneaking poison into food stores or loosening rocks above mountain passes. None of it works, because you adapt. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every loss, a sharpened spear. When a river drowns 100 of your supply, carts, you invent a floating bridge. When mountain tribes ambush your scouts, you train your men to mimic eagle calls and fight by moonlight. You are not static. You are evolution on horseback. Let's talk Herat. It's stunning. Tall towers, turquoise domes, a library so vast it's said to rival Alexandria's. When your army camps outside its walls, the scholars inside debate whether knowledge alone can shield them. Spoiler, it can't, but you don't destroy Herat, you take it, you keep the library. You post guards at its gates. You allow the scholars to live, even invite a few into your court. Because here's the twist. You're not just erasing the Khwarizmian Empire. You're building something newer, bigger, smarter. A trade empire that connects China to Constantinople. A postal system where a message can travel 200 miles in a day. A code of laws that applies equally, whether you're a desert nomad or a silk-draped merchant. You, the so-called barbarian, are civilizing the ruins. But you don't let anyone forget what it cost. At night, your campfires flicker in rhythmic rows stretching for miles. From a hilltop, they look like stars fallen to earth. You ride between the tents quietly, sometimes alone, listening, watching. You hear soldiers telling stories about you, some true, some ridiculous. One swears you once tamed a wolf by whispering in its ear. Another says you drink fire. You never correct them, because myths are useful. Sometimes they kill faster than swords. Back to business. You receive word that remnants of Khwarizmian nobility have fled to the west, seeking shelter among former allies. So you send a message, just one sentence, carved into stone and delivered. By a trembling envoy. I do not chase, I arrive. It's not a threat, it's a forecast. Cities like Ray and Kazvin see the writing literally on the wall. They pledge loyalty, offer their gates, swear fealty to your banners. In return, you do. Something almost scandalous. You spare them. You let their leaders live. You take their artisans, their maps, their engineers, because you're not just interested in conquering land anymore. You're interested in ideas. You create a council that includes generals and astrologers. You demand maps of the known world. You test out new siege technologies captured from Persian engineers. Quick curiosity. You once instructed your commanders to build a river dam by hand during a siege to redirect the water and flood a fortified city. That's right. You weaponized plumbing. So while people call you destroyer, they don't always see the builder underneath. But your soldiers know. They see how you reward loyalty with lands, how you elevate merit over bloodline, how you promote cooks who make you laugh and punish generals who show arrogance. You are the storm and the architect of calm after it. The Khwarizmian Empire is now not even a memory, it's a warning. You ride through its old capitals, not as a foreign invader, but as something stranger, someone both feared and followed. And as you look westward toward the Caucasus, toward Europe, one thought hammers at the back of your skull. What's next? Your horse snorts softly in the cold morning air. The saddle creaks as you lean forward, eyes fixed on the jagged horizon of the Hindu Kush mountains. You've burned through an empire, and yet your appetite hasn't waned. Jalal al-Din, the sea, last defiant ember of the Khwarizmian line, has taken refuge south of the Oxus, scattering what's left of his armies into the highlands and the sands of India. He thinks distance will save him. He's wrong. You cross the river with fury disguised as calm. The waters churn with the hooves of your war horses, the ripples echoing, the steady beat of your resolve. Your scouts report that Jalal has gathered a force, a decent one bolstered by mountain tribes and hardened exiles, but nothing compared to the machine you now command. You ride with Subutai and Jebbe, your oldie. Hounds of war. You don't need maps anymore. Your memory of this landscape is etched into your muscles. The narrow valleys, the treacherous passes, the places where echoes carry lies. You smell ambush before you see it. You reach the Indus, its waters shimmering, like molten silver beneath a pale sun. On the far side waits Jalal al-Din, and for the first time in this entire campaign you feel something different. Respect? Maybe he hasn't fled, he hasn't begged. He's ready to die on his feet. You signal your men. Banners rise, arrows knock into bows. The plains shiver with the breath of thousands, and then war. The battle is swift and brutal. Jalal charges like a man already halfway to legend. His personal guard fights with desperation you haven't seen since your own childhood skirmishes along the Onon River. At one point, you lose sight of your command standard in the dust and chaos. But it doesn't matter, because your men know the rhythm now. They fight like a single limb. When one flank falters, the other wraps around it like muscle and tendon. You watch Jalal fight his way to the edge of the river, his horse frothing, his sword dancing like fire. Then he does something no one expects. He leaps. Not metaphorically, literally. He rides his horse off a cliff into the rushing river below, vanishing into the froth like some myth swallowed by the gods. You don't cheer, you just exhale. You know he survived. The river didn't claim him. But the empire he was born into? Gone. You've shattered it into a cautionary tale. Quick curiosity. Years later, Jalal al-Din becomes a wandering warrior poet of sorts. He fights off crusaders in Anatolia, gains and loses kingdoms like spare coins, and is eventually murdered by a Kurdish assassin. But that leap? That's the stuff of epics. After the battle, your army rests. Sort of. Mostly they just reorganize and start planning for the next horizon. You sit in your tent, a low lamp flickering against the yak-hide walls. A map stretches before you, edges curling from heat and wear. It reaches beyond Khwarizm, past Persia. Past the Caucasus, toward the west, you tap your finger on the unknown. Your court advisors urge caution. Perhaps, they whisper, it is time to consolidate, govern, settle. You smile politely, then you ride out. The campaign has changed you. You're no longer just Genghis, the upstart warlord who broke tribal feuds with blood and cunning. You're Temujin reborn, a force that cannot be neatly categorized. Khan of Khans, lawgiver, storyteller, shadow on the steppes. You issue new decrees anyone can serve as long as they're loyal. All faiths are tolerated, as long as their priests don't interfere with law. Trade routes are protected. Mongol. Riders, your Ordu's lifeblood, are given priority across the empire's entire girth. A vast information network spreads under your command. Messengers carry news from the Caspian Sea to the Great Wall in weeks. Your codified laws, the Yasa, cement. Your rule with clarity and terror alike. And still, the campaign whispers in your bones. One night, in the hush of your tent, you hold an arrow in your hand, not to fire it, just to remember. Its weight, its purpose, the simplicity of its design, the empire you built, on horseback, through fire, and snow started with this, with focus, with direction. You send out Subutai again, this time to explore the edges of Europe. You dispatch envoys to far-off empires you haven't crushed yet. Your sons squabble, your generals get ambitious, but your word remains the final word, because they know. The man who defeated the Khwarizmian Emperor doesn't just conquer, he endures. And now, you've earned the luxury of imagining what comes. Next, but you don't stop. You ride, always ride. And now, the horses are silent. The fires have burned down to glowing embers, just enough to warm your hands if you stretch them out slowly. The scent of the plains still lingers, distant pine, old leather, and that soft iron smell of the forge. The world is still for a moment. You're no longer chasing anyone, no longer being chased. Just the faint rhythm of your heartbeat, a quiet echo of hooves in the night. There's peace in this stillness, though it took the thunder of war to find it. You lay down in the soft grass beyond your last battlefield. The stars overhead blink slowly, like they too are drowsy, shifting behind wisps of cloud. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls once, low like a secret. You close your eyes. The empire will wait. For now, just let the wind curl gently around your shoulders. Let the earth beneath you feel familiar and forgiving. Let your breath slow, to match the hush of night, one deep inhale at a time. You did what others only dared to dream. You carved a path across the bones of empires, and yet here, in this quiet, there is no need for swords or maps, just stillness and rest.